Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the dice game herself,
Sarah.
And today we're taking a two-player perspective and accessibility for Port Royal, the dice game. Now, if you're curious about our opinions, check out our other video, Rolling with Reviews, Port Royal, the dice game. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. In this roll and write, a reimagining of the Port Royal card game, you'll now use dice to press your luck. To move forward in the game, you'll want to use ships to cross off spaces on your map sheet, hire useful crew on the islands, and collect ship wheels for extra bonuses. There are 4 different maps to play with that increase in difficulty. Whoever gets to 20 points first wins, unless someone can manage a sudden death victory. All right, Will, so how do the rules change for 2 players?
Okay, so first off, there is no bot. You'd think with a shared pool where you're pulling things off, they usually put some sort of 3-player AI. Not here.
Nope.
So, Nana pirates are gone.
Uh-oh.
All right. As for the changes on page 10, it goes over all the changes for 2 and 5-player games. 2-player specifically, whoever the active player is will get a second turn after they and the other player take a main turn. So that's only specifically for 2 players. Additionally, when setting up your map, 2 players will mark off more X's on the Jester Island, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but other player counts will mark different amounts on that island, if at all.
Yep. All right, so the main issue we had is because of the way dice work, that fact that you could never roll the thing you want or whatever.
Me.
That's true. When one person has worse luck and another person has better luck, it can just feel very imbalanced in a 2-player experience.
Yes, yeah.
So
it's more of a feeling thing.
Yes.
I mean, they do put in a number of elements to make it so that you're not completely out of luck, even if you happen to be a bad roller.
Right. For a push your luck game, they put in a lot of mechanisms to keep the game moving forward and never let anyone be truly out of the running, so to speak.
Yeah, but the feeling is still there, and it's very harsh at a 2-player game.
Right.
It's like, geez, okay. I guess we're playing this game again.
Yeah.
Or I'm failing to play this game again.
Yeah, Will did not have good luck with the dice. But what the game does well at the 2-player is it's mechanically structured to incentivize the active player to keep rolling dice. Because in the card game, there's a lot of player interaction because you want to put out cards because people get to buy cards on your turn and you get some money from it, which is what incentivizes you to push your luck.
Yeah, but sometimes in the card game, you'll put out a really good card and well, I just want that. I don't care if other people buy it or not because, well, they're not buying anything extra, so they're not getting ahead anywhere, and this will put me where I want to be.
Right. But here, because you get to take a second turn after you both take normal turns. So in a normal game, each player gets 1 turn per round, and that's it. But here, the active player will get another turn. So you are incentivized to put more things out on the board so you have more choices. Yes, you could literally put out 3 things, and that's really usually safe. Not always in Will's case, but
never in my. In fact, barely putting one thing out is risky.
Yeah. But you want to be able to have choices because you're going to take the first thing, and then the other player is going to take one of those things. So you could leave yourself with just, one option, which is not an option. You have to take it. If it's what you want, then you're safe. But pushing to put more out, plus there are some minor penalties if you only put one thing out.
Yeah.
You will take some negative, not necessarily points, it might get you to negative points, but some negative consequences.
Yes.
Also, as we said, what it does well is that Jester Island, the Jester from the main game is, if you bust, you still get something from busting. And in this game, the same concept. You get a little more, in my opinion, than what the card game gives you, just 1 coin.
I should probably explain a little bit of how the busting works. So you have 2 dice. One die is one of 6 colors.
Right.
Blue, green, orange, yellow, red, and black. That will tell you which row a meeple is going to go on. Then you have another die that has letters from A to E, and B is doubled up.
Yes.
So you'll roll that, see what's on there, and it's either going to be a ship or a wheel. And it doesn't matter the first roll, something will always go out there. Wheels will never let you bust. If you have to put out, say, a second yellow wheel and your yellow wheel's out there, it just gets removed.
Right.
And then you can roll again. Now, if it's a ship of the same color, that's when you bust.
Yes. And so bad things can happen when you bust.
Yeah, and the more you put out there, when it's your active turn, the more you can take.
Right. It was hard to get there, but
Yeah.
you can. It's possible. So the Jester Island, the different player counts will cross off different number of X's. But I felt like in most of our games, I know I always went for the Jester. I think there was one time you didn't.
Right.
But it's like a really good idea to have there for when you bust. It makes you feel less worried about, less careful, I guess.
Yeah, you can be a little bit more reckless with your dice
That's what I was
rolls.
trying to find. So there you go. I think that pretty much sums up the 2-player experience, though.
Okay.
All right. Accessibilities. Unfortunately, there's a few problems. Mostly it's the rules, which we also had a problem in the card game version.
I think it's because it's a translation
Yes.
of a different language. And so it does come out being weird phrasing of concepts as well as mistakes. So,
Yes.
for example, in the rules, it will call one particular person a trader. But on all the maps, they're merchants.
Yeah.
So you're like, where's the trader? It says there's a trader here. I only see a merchant. Is that it? And it is.
Because the icons match up for
Yes.
what they do. But yeah, that's like one of those mistakes that you would have thought would get caught, but if you had different people reviewing it for translating it into English. But also a lot of the concepts just don't feel, you don't get all the concepts right away. It's like it starts teaching you some of the things, but then some of the things are left till later, like the specificity.
It'll go into an aside and you have no context
Yeah.
of how to even deal with it. I mean, yes, it will go there in terms of explanation, but you don't really understand, well,
The importance.
Yeah, why do I want to spend a red wheel to mark off 3 X's when I have at least 4 tokens? What does any of that mean? And that's before it explains, half the game.
Yeah. So it was just a little struggle to get through the rules as written. So we recommend either having someone teach it to you if possible, because once you play the game, it's not that hard. It's just the rules did a very poor job of explaining it.
Yeah.
Or you can look to see if there's a video that teaches you. Also, there's just tiny icons and tiny font everywhere. It's and especially on a sheet that you're writing on, you don't think you'd need to pick it up to like, I need to be able to read this. If you have cards, okay, I can understand. I need to pick up a card to read it. But a whole sheet that you're marking on, it was frustrating at just how tiny. It would have benefited from being 2 separate sheets. The map being one, and then the people that you mark off being a second one, which is how we've seen a lot of these games handle it, is you can get larger printing if you do 2 separate sheets rather than trying to fit it on one.
Right.
So going back to that merchant and also the wholesaler, which does similar things but a little bit differently. The icons rely on color differentiation, but being that small, it's honestly kind of hard to even see what the color is.
Because the color's like the background.
Yeah, it's like the background behind the ship. You shrink an icon small enough, there's very little of that color in there to identify. But the groupings are always yellow and orange,
Blue and green.
Yeah, blue and green, and then red and black. So
If you can find one of those colors, you know what the other ship is.
yeah. And so this also leads to, this is not great contrast on the sheets. It's just, again, poor graphic design. We talked a little bit about the dice. The orange and the red are definitely difficult to tell apart, but they have different number of swords. The red will have 2 and the orange will have 1. And for those who have green and blue colorblind accessibility, the same thing. Green has 1 sword and blue has 2. I don't think this was intentional, but this helps differentiate for colorblind accessibilities.
It had accidental solutions.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a blue and red problem, then, well, you have a problem. Because they both have 2 swords.
They both have 2 swords.
So that means you're probably going to have to mark your dice.
Right. The player discs, which are just to track your score, they're all pastel and kind of faded colors. The good news is just they give you 2 discs, so you put 1 on the board and 1 in front of you. But honestly, you just need some sort of flat disc because you do need to be able to stack them. Grab it from some other game if none of these colors work for you. Thankfully, it's a very simple component. But it's really bizarre, the color choice. I'm guessing it's just so they don't interfere with the ship wheel and ship color meeples, so they wouldn't be the same color.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. Speaking of those ships and ship wheels, one of the tricky parts is remembering which piece you took. And we got this suggestion from a friend of ours who told us about this game, is you put all the stuff down flat on the board as you're rolling the dice. You put them down flat. When it's your turn, stand up the piece upright that you're going to take and then do your action. And that way, sometimes it just seems like you'd be doing something and you'd forget what it was that you took.
Yeah, a lot of times it's because you're calculating, well, okay, I'm getting this one that gives me this many X's I can mark off, but I'm using this ability that gives me these extra X's. I'm using this wheel to give me some more X's. So now how much do I have? Okay, I've done all my calculations. And then you start marking off an island. It's like, okay, wait, how many did I have left? Let me recalculate. Oh, crap. Which one did I pick?
Right.
And so that's why it's a really good idea to just stand up the boat to show this is the one you're choosing so you can recalculate. Then when you're done with your turn, remove the boat from the mat.
Yep. It's a pretty simple solution. Something I wouldn't have thought of necessarily, and it definitely helps a lot. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's all that is kind of wrong or challenging accessibility-wise. What it does right is, well, at least it's all open information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can get someone else to help you. Why am I looking at it?
Except when you are the only one with usable eyes and you can't tell the difference, then I guess you take a picture and ask somebody else, text it to them. Is this green? Is this blue?
Yeah.
But anyways, so unfortunately, there's nothing really to say this does anything really great for accessibility, but like that part at least means that you can get help.
Yeah, and it can be fairly easy to modify. Yeah. So maybe go through and go, okay, I'm going to call all the yellow-orange traders or wholesalers yellow-orange.
Oh, yeah.
So put that as, and then GBs and your RBs.
Yep.
And then if you don't want to continuously write that on all your mats, use a one of those sleeves that we use for like dry erase. You just pop the thing in there and then write on the
One of
outside.
the best investments we've done for roll and write games is just I think they're advertised for school or teaching use, where you can put a piece of paper in like a quiz or something, and then the kids can just write in the dry erase marker on the sleeve, and they're usually brightly colored borders around it, and then when you're done you wipe it off, you take the sheet out, and that way or you leave it in. But with this one being, there's 4 maps and you can take it out and put in a different map. So highly recommend those. We got them off Amazon, but I assume you can find them other places as well.
Yep.
Okay, conclusion.
For 2 players, would you recommend?
Yes, I think they did a really good job of scaling it. This might actually be, again, one of those games I prefer it 2 players because of that extra interaction. I think if we played it higher player counts, I'd kind of miss that.
Yeah. This actually does very good and very smart things when it comes to the 2-player, where they're like, okay, I see where this game can be weak. Let's make a few changes to make it incentivized for the game to still shine.
Right.
And in fact, after playing it, I was like, I think I'd feel cheated if I had an active turn and I didn't take 2, like in a 2-player game.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to play it at higher player counts.
Right. It reminds me of Race for the Galaxy because you get to choose 2 of the phases in a 2-player game, so it feels like you get to control more. You get to have more impact on the game.
Yeah, you're less likely to just look at the rest of the table like, geez, what are you doing? Can't you see what I'm trying to accomplish here?
Right.
You're not working with me, people.
So for accessibility, we complained about a lot of things. I want to say for most people, they won't be a problem. But if you've got some colorblind accessibility issues or your vision's not great at seeing small things, you might have challenges or just trying to learn the rules.
Yeah, in fact, you were actually worried about the map when we first heard about this game. That's actually not the biggest challenge.
No, him remembering the map. Well, you don't really need to remember the map because you can only explore it from the place that you start. And like, knowing where some things are can be kind of helpful, but can also be very overwhelming.
Yes.
So for him, he wasn't at any disadvantage not being able to see the map because you are limited in how you grow.
Right.
Or move through the map area. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's accessibility.
Okay, decent.
Decent.
All right. And Sarah,
yes.
One of the things I thought that was interesting about this game, compared to the game it's based on,
right,
is that it's not trying to create a one-for-one.
Right. It's not trying to be the card game, the dice game.
Right. Because I've seen a lot of when they do the dice game, the card game, the whatever.
The roll and write.
Yeah, they're trying to
roll and write.
They're trying to recreate as much of the base game in its guise. This one uses flavor
and concepts,
right, but implements them in
a completely
unique way. What do you think about that?
I like it, and honestly, I win this game more than I win the Port Royal card game. I'm terrible. I love playing Port Royal the card game, but I'm terrible at actually winning it because it does rely a bit on timing and assessing the state of the board, which I'm not necessarily very good at. But this, because it's so different and it has the roll and write mechanisms and it focuses on that and trying to make that shine, I do really good at it and I find it really engaging. So honestly, not to spoil it for our review, but there are points where I would choose this over the card game.
Yeah, mechanically speaking, this is a refreshing way to approach another game of the similar name title.
Same concepts and everything.
Yeah, same concepts, but in a different format, a different medium, because it creates its own game. I just wish they were a little bit more creative with the name.
Yeah, I never would
dice
the
game.
Dice game. They could have done something. I don't know what.
Yes. And why would you ever roll with just one when you can be rolling with two? If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two. That's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.